some of the conversations I've been having lately and some of the videos I've been watching, particularly with Piro, Pathless Path, Thou Art That, Matt, Silver Soul, one or two other people. It kind of reminded me of a story that I really wanted to write at one point. I mean, I'll never write it, and I'm not really up for that, but I really like this idea for a storyline. And there's 3 or 4 things which you have to kind of know about to be able to understand the story, I think. First is Teilhard de Chardin's idea of the Omega Point. This idea that evolution or some kind of developmental processes that we're all involved in have got a teleology, they've got an end in mind, and they're all working towards this end point. They're all rising and converging towards this final Omega Point of kind of ultimate perfection, I guess. It's kind of synonymous with God or the source or the one. It has that kind of feel to it. That's the first idea. It doesn't matter that it's spurious, it's just like a nice idea. The second idea you have to know about is the idea of cargo cults. A cargo cult is the name for a strange kind of anthropological phenomenon that arose in certain civilizations, certain typically isolated island societies, largely after the Second World War, when these, as I say, small island populations came across Western culture and Western technologies for the first time. So, you know, typically a group of engineers would come in, build some kind of a runway, series of aeroplanes would come in for a couple of years, take out cargo, and there'd be food and all this kind of Western products in these boxes, some of which would be distributed amongst the natives, and then after a couple of years they'd up sticks and sod off and never come back. What the natives would often do in those situations is form cults around this, what had happened. So they would build fake runways, build fake control towers, build fake aeroplanes, like little fires along the runways, to reproduce the conditions in which this magical cargo just arrived out of the sky. I think in some of those civilizations they had a name for this person who comes out of the sky. It's usually called John From, which apparently is short for John from America, which is just fantastic. So that's the second idea you need to build into it. The third idea is to do with time going forwards and backwards. There's quite a few stories that talk about how time might work backwards or might work in different directions. I'm thinking of Time's Arrow, I'm thinking of Counterclock World, to a certain extent the strange case of Benjamin Button, that's a bit different. Time Out of Joint for K. Dick. Just ideas about how time might, although for us Time's Arrow is experienced forwards, there might be a kind of backwash, there might be another direction for time which starts in what we would call the future and washes backwards towards the past, to what we think of as the past. So those are the ideas that I'm thinking about that would inform this story. And the idea is that here we are, we're living in a universe which has that, what we would think of as a teleology, what we think of as an end point, but that's actually the starting point. So God, or the Omega Point, or the singularity, the source, the one, is in the future. It's at the end of time. But because it's part of this backwash, that is the beginning of time also, in this imagining. And so the stream of counter-directional time comes from this future singularity, this future source, and washes backwards past us towards our past, and we're constantly swimming upstream against that. And as we're swimming upstream towards the singularity of the future, the tide that leads from that future is constantly washing echoes of itself, echoes of that future through our civilization. Just like things being washed downstream. And so we experience those as kind of feelings and urges and impetuses and desires and dreams and fantasies. So, for example, if I was going to write this out, here we are you know, for hundreds of years people have been building these tall structures, church towers, totem poles, obelisks. People have been building these, and this is the backwash. This is the tide that's flowing through the period that we're living in now, the period of phone masts and conning towers and electricity pylons, tall structures which have a function, which are captured in the past as a kind of cargo cult version of themselves in steeples and totem poles. And another version that I guess this relates more specifically to what Piero and Matt and those guys were talking about is perhaps even at the level of stories. Perhaps there is in this imaginary fictional world I'm describing, perhaps the echoes of the future, and this wash of the future. Some of the ideas, which will perhaps be scientific ideas in the future, are being washed down to us, and we're feeling them as traces, and we're reconstructing them as little kind of cargo cult stories. And those are the stories of our religions and our myths and our mysticisms. It's not like Mad Max on Thunderdome. It's not that kind of thing, where these stories are echoes of lost technologies from the past. They're echoes of technologies yet to be found in the future. Anyhow, that's the story. I'll never get the chance to write it, so if anybody does fancy writing it, send me a copy. Cite me as a consultant. That'd be cool.